All right, on the bench today out of a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with a 3.6, we have the 8-speed transmission called an 845RE. All right, and this basically is the same family as the ZF units, because what we're going to be doing today is a case swap. Okay, we're going to be pulling all the internals out, the valve body, the pump, and the gear train, because this case has a crack in it. And the transmission is fairly low mileage. See, what happened was, this isn't the original transmission. The original transmission is already taken apart, and I have the case, and I'm going to clean that case up and put all these parts into the original case. What actually had happened was the transmission had gone bad. They said it was slipping in reverse, flaring on a 3/4 shift, which tells me there's an issue with the D clutch. And guy wasn't looking to spend a lot of money, so he decided to get a used transmission. He got this, he said, at a really good price with low mileage. And then when he put it in, he said the thing worked fine, but then he saw some drops on the ground, raised it up, noticed the case had a crack in it. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be taking all this stuff out and putting it into the other case. All right, so this actually came from me. The guy that owns this is a mechanic at the local Ferrari dealership here on Long Island, and this job ended up coming to me because I have a family member who has a Ferrari, and when they were speaking, they said, "All right, got just the guy to take care of this for you," and he called me, and this is what we decided upon. Instead of parts are very, very expensive at this, so instead of doing an overhaul on the original one, this is what we decided on. We can kind of make one out of the two, and I got a text, from my uncle, and he says he says, do me a favor and hook the guy up. So, for a small fee, I'm just going to hook him up, take care of it, and I'm going to be doing, of course, a new pump O-ring, new rear seal, because when we take the rear seal out, there's going to be a snap ring and a shim. Won't be able to get the gear train out until we take that out. And I'm going to be getting a new pan. I don't have the new pan yet. So when I call my supplier over at Transtar and I says, hey, I need a pump O-ring for an 845RE, I believe it jumped over to the part number for the ZF 8HP70, which I have scattered parts, and I have a rear seal and I have a pump O-ring. So I have that, so now I just would have to get the pan. So what we're going to do is we're going to chunk this down. It's not going to take long, because basically the valve body is going to come out, and then we're going to go ahead and get the pump out. We'll get the B clutch out, and then I'll take the snap ring off, and the whole gear train is going to come out. From the input shaft to the output shaft, all that's going to come out, and we're really not going to take anything apart because we're just swapping the case. So I have my hot tank heating up now, so in the meantime, while that's heating up, we're going to take this apart. I have the case over there, and as soon as it gets up to temperature, I'll wash that up as well. I'm going to use also the little adapter housing for the transfer case. I have that. They brought that. I'm going to clean that up as well. So let me get a little closer, and we'll just basically chunk this thing down. Won't take very long. It'll be quick. And then we'll see if we can't put all this back together again, with the exception of the pan. So again, this transmission is in the ZF family. And I like to see, I don't think this pan for the Chrysler is made in Germany, but I know it is an OE pan, obviously, so I'm curious to see what it says. Filtran, I'm sure, is the maker, but I'm curious to see what it says, where it's made, to know that is an OE pan. So we're gonna check that out too. I was thinking about that the other day. The pans aren't the same as the 8HP70, but I'm curious to see what it says, to know that it's an OE pan. I'm sure it says Filtran, but we're curious to see if it says something else. All right, so Let me get a little closer and we'll go ahead and just take, we're going to take the extension housing off, or the adapter housing. Going to get the O-ring off for the lock-up torque converter, the pump bolts. We're going to flip it. I'm also going to get the rear seal off and confirm there is a snap ring behind there. Going to get the pump valve body, and like I said, it's going to go quick because everything is going to come out in one shot. All right, so let me get a little closer and we'll get started. Okay, all right, so let's start here. I got most of these bolts out, the exception of 3 of them. So let's go ahead and get this housing off here. These are 15 millimeter. Shouldn't be. Give it a tap. There we go. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and knock out the rear seal and just confirm there is a snap ring behind that we will have to take off to get everything apart. It is, and yes, there is a snap ring. Okay, snap ring and kind of like a shim. All right, next, oh, the crack, by the way, I can see a crack coming right up here. So that's why we're gonna change this case. Okay, here's a little vent cap here. Just pop this off. All right, now you're gonna get the O-ring off for the converter. Okay, and if we want to forget to put that back. And then torque 50, we're gonna get the pump bolts out. Okay, technically, these are torque to use bolts. This washer is no good, so I have extra washers, no problem. Okay. I'm hoping this transmission should be drained because the oil is, the Mopar 8 9-speed oil is very expensive, and I'm hoping he drained it before he sent me this. But I don't see why he wouldn't. Okay. All right, then we have a T40 for the pan bolts. One more. Let me just get rid of this oil here. He also brought me the torque converter. I have that draining. You can actually Fluid's pretty clean. I can actually run and get that and show you what that looks like. Just get rid of this. Okay, good enough. All right, so the pan, pan is clean, and there is the Filtran sign. It says Filtran, and this one says Made in USA. So on the Chrysler products, OE, I guess that's what you want to look for. All right, so we'll move this out of the way. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the transmission upright, and I'll get a little closer by pulling the valve body off. Okay, so I'll turn this here. And I just want to bring the camera more on top. We'll pull the valve body off. Then we'll get the pump out, take the snap ring out, slide everything out, and that's really about it. All right, let me just reposition 1 second here. All right, just real quick, you can see the crack. It's like here, and it comes all the way up right here. All right, now let me just get this thing focused on the valve body. Let's back off a little bit. A little more. Okay. All right, so the valve body has the T40. All right, but just like the regular ZF units, we got to get the sleeve out. So we take the one bolt out. We're going to lift up on the tab. It's probably not going to pull out by hand. Okay, and here, that right here. Okay. Okay. And then, of course, we can't forget the output speed sensor, which the bolt is really the same size as these other small ones. We'll get these out. Okay, output speed. All right. Now let's get all the torque 40 bolts out and get this valve body off. Get these. I got a couple of more still in there. And we should have one more right here. Okay. So we can just go ahead and lift this out. Fairly clean. Here's your transfer pipes here for the oil. And he had put this transmission in, and he said he didn't do any kind of program or anything, and it worked fine, which I'm pretty shocked because the VIN number doesn't match, and it was just weird that it actually started and everything. Okay, now we have the seal for the B clutch. I'm gonna take that out. All right. Now, with the ZF units, all right, you really want to try to get the pump out because this is a machined area, but there's an opening here in case you had to get some leverage, which I had to do once. Then I just hit it with a flat sander and it was okay, stone. But I'm going to try to get the pump out from here first, but if it doesn't come out, I might have to get another one here and just try to pop it. But let's try first. Where is here? Okay. These these are a little tighter than the ZFs. So what I want to try here, you know, I mean, if you can get it out this way, fine. If you can't, then, you know, I just try not to go crazy this way. But again, just this is open, so and just hit it with a flat sander. But let's see, maybe I can. All right, I'm gonna give it a little pop here. There we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna hit it with a stone. I'm gonna hit it with a stone here and here. The ZFs, they come out, seem like a little easier. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and pull this pump out. Okay, here's the chain, you know, that drives the pump. Okay. All right, you have your A clutch and your B clutch piston. All right, now let's get this ring gear out, and then we can get the B clutch out. Okay. All right, let's get. Okay. All right, here's the ring gear. The B clutch. And this stuff looks pretty good. So of course the pressure plate goes in first, and you'll end up with the wave steel. Okay, now I'm going to get the snap ring out. I'm going to pull the gear train out, and that's it. All right, so let's turn it back this way. Let me get my snap ring pliers, make sure you guys can see. There's the snap ring. Now we got to get that little washer or shim out. Get a little magnet for that. Okay, there we go. I don't know if I had mentioned it, the rear seals. I believe they are the same as, in that case there's a nice crack in it. The same as like a 6HP26. So I'm not going to stand this thing up and pull it out. We're just going to kind of yank this thing out on the bench here. But when I put it back together, I have to stand it up. So now everything is going to come out. Okay. Just try to keep some off of it. Ugh. There we go. That's everything. Okay, now let me just move this side, like that. Drain this case. All right, and that's it. So, let me get the other case clean, get rid of this oil, get organized, and then we can throw this back together, with the exception of the pan. I do not have the pan yet. All right, so I will be back in a little while. Let me get the case cleaned up, and we'll go from there. All right, I'll return. Okay, so I got the original case cleaned up, ready to go. And of course, we're just going to be putting these parts back in. So to do that, I'm going to be standing the case up and dropping in the entire assembly. All right, there are some bearings, barrel bearing and round bearing and a flat bearing. In the back of the case, I got those greased up with some trans gel, and I blew all the water out as best I can. So that should be good to go. So now we're going to stand this up and pretty much load everything back in. I have my pump O-ring, I have a new rear seal, and the only thing I can't do is the pan, because I do not have that yet. I'll have that I didn't actually plan on doing this today, but I kind of got caught up, so I want to just try to knock this thing out real quick. And I'll have the pan tomorrow, and I just got to put the pan on and finish it up. But this won't take long at all, it'll be quick. All right, so let me kind of get set up. I'm going to stand the case up. I got to get something to step up on the bench and drop everything in. All right, so I'll be right back. Okay, so we're all ready to go. I got the case propped up with a couple of block of wood and some bushing drivers. It's, you know, pretty steady. And this whole thing is going to get dropped in one shot. This is your D-clutch feed back here with 2 rings, so I put some trans gel on that. Just don't want the rings to come out of place. Not that they will, they're kind of like hard plastic. All right, now with the case, with this heavy barrel spring here, this thing is always in park. And the park is here. All right, so what I did was I loosened these 3 Torque 27 bolts and backed out this plate a little bit, which the parking pole came back a little bit. It might be a little easier to load it into the case, and then I'll just tighten the 3 bolts on. Because if you can leave it like that, it's not a big deal. You just may have to turn it so it drops in between the park here. But just so I can kind of hopefully just go right in with it, I just loosened them up and backed it out a little bit. All right. I mean, it should be okay because it's just sticking out a little bit. So, all right. So we got the D-clutch feed back here. So I put some trans gel on those rings. Now up here we have the A, B, C, and E clutch feed. But I'll do those once it's in because might have to grip that, and I don't want to slip with the grease on it. So I guess we're ready to load this thing in. You know what? I'm not really lined up here. I was. Okay. All right, so let's pick this up. I'm going to drop it right in. That's it. It's hitting the parking pole a little bit, but the whole thing is spinning, so I did back it out enough. Okay, so that's it, that's in. All right, so the next thing, we got to put the ring gear on, the B clutch, and the pump. All right, so let's get the pump here. Right. Okay. All right, so what I'll do is I guess I can put the camera up on the bench and face it down so you can see me loading in the B clutch and the pump and stuff like that. So let me get set up for that. Give me 1 second. Okay, so let's get our ring gear in. This you can actually put in if you want before, I just forgot. Okay, now we're going to put our B clutch in. Now we're going to start with the pressure plate. Pressure plate goes down first. And we'll end with the wave steel on top. Okay. All right, now I'm going to put the pump in. I'm going to get some grease on the O-rings, a little over here, and on the sealing rings also. And then we got a dowel right here that the pump is going to have to go into. So it's kind of got to go straight down. It's got to go into some splines for the 8 clutch hub. So you can't really turn it to try to, you might have to maybe turn the input shaft or maybe the output shaft, and it should drop down. All right, so let's get some grease on these rings here also. All right, so I'm just greasing up the O-ring now on the pump cover. And I'm going to use a small screwdriver to kind of just line everything up to make sure everything gets in line and drop it in. I'm also going to do just a little bit of STP also on the pump O-ring. And then we'll be good to go. Okay. Okay. Trying to finagle this around in the tripod. So. Okay, so now I'm going to go for, let's see, we got a bolt that goes here. And that should be the first one, right here. Okay. All right, so I have a little vice grip here to help me hold it. And what I'm gonna have to put 2 on. Okay. All right. So now we got the screwdriver in there, lined up. I'm going to drop her down. Wow, I think it actually, the splines, I think actually everything was lined up. Yeah, okay, drop down a little more on its own. Okay, that looks good. Okay, that's one. Maybe a second here. All right, just putting a washer on this one. Okay. Even on the ZFs, these things go down. Just pushing it by hand. There we go. Okay, all right, that is down and it is flat. All right, let me just get set up. We can tighten these down and torque them down. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, so let's just run these down. Okay, so now how they want this done is they first want you to tighten bolts number 1, 7, and 9 to like 53 inch-pounds, just to, I guess, to make sure the pump is seated flat. So let me just set this. Okay, so here's 1. 7 is here, and 9. Okay, now they want them 90 inch-pounds and then an additional 90 degrees. Okay, but first let's start with this one again. Okay. So I might just be going just shy of 90, but that's fine. Okay, last one. Good. Okay. All right, so that is good. Let's put our O-ring on so we do not forget that. Okay. Okay. All right, so now let me move the camera and basically just gonna put the extension housing on, the valve body, the seal for the B2 clutch. Actually, what we'll do is put the seal for the B2 clutch. I want to tighten that plate before I forget for the park, and we'll air check it, make sure it looks okay. All right, so give me a few minutes, I'll be right back. All right, so we got the B clutch seal we're gonna put back in. Then we're gonna tighten this plate down. I just gotta make sure this is good, like it's, you know, when the parking, otherwise it may jam. That looks good. Okay. There's a little kind of dowel there, and sometimes these bolts are a little tough, but okay. Okay. Alright, so that comes out of park. That's into park. Okay, so that's good. Alright, so let's air check it quick. Ensure everything is going to be fine. We didn't really touch anything. Those are 40 T40s. Where's my 40? There it is. All right, so we'll very lightly just run these down. Still may be oil in here, but we'll be very careful when we're air checking. Okay, so we have the E-clutch. That's good. A-clutch. Nice. The B. And the D. Pretty good. And the C. Yeah, solid. Very nice. Next thing I want to do is wipe that magnet clean, because that's what the range switch uses. So while we have it apart, might as well clean that. Just wipe the crap off of it. Okay. Okay, so this is tight. That air check's good. All right. Next thing I want to do here, let me bring it down. Let's do the snap ring, the little shim, and the snap ring. And then right before we put the I'll put the rear seal in, and then we can put the extension housing on after. Okay. Okay, that's in. Turns. All right. Okay, if you want to put some grease here to hold that spring in. Make sure it doesn't pop out on you. That's fine. All right, now we just want to get it flush with the case. it's in. Alright, now I'll get the valve body on. Let's see, just reposition here. Piece of linkage or something. All right, let me grab the piece of linkage off the old case because I'm going to need to move this thing back, and that's a real heavy spring. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I have a piece of linkage that I can move this with because again that spring, this barrel spring, which pushes everything into park, is very, very heavy. All right, so let's get the valve body over here. And what I want to do is I want to put some grease here on these transfer tube O-rings. Okay. Then we can go ahead and set this in place. All right, so the park piston is moving free, so that's good. All right, let's get this down. We're going to move the linkage back. All right, it's not cooperating. Okay, I went a little too far, so let's pull down. All right, so I'm going to just put it that. Okay, so that'll be a little easier to work with. All right, now let's put this in place. Okay, very nice. Okay, that's good. Okay, I'll put speed sensor. Get that to sit flat. It's not sitting flat. There we go. I'm still not sitting flat. Okay, now. Before I tighten that bolt up. All right, so let's get some of these bolts in. You know, under the computer, there's like a spring clip, and that's what's probably keeping the valve body up. Okay, so that went down. So let's put that in. I gotta find where my 40 is. going to hold it down. Okay. Okay. All right, that's working good. All right, next thing we want to do is we're going to put our sleeve back in so we can close that latch and put the bolt there. All right, and this will only go in one way. Just got to find where the notch is. Okay, down, perfect. Bolt. Okay. Now let's run these down. Okay, this we are going to torque to 100 inch-pounds. Okay. We are good to go. Alrighty. Now we're gonna pull this over to the edge. Get it to stay like that. Let me just reposition. I'm just going to really put that extension housing on. And then that's it. Pan will be here tomorrow. Got to screw these in pretty good because it got to get it on a real big angle for the flex socket. So screw them in about 3/4 of the way, and then the rest you can tighten them up. Okay. Okay. And I got my vent, which I can put back on because that's nowhere near the bench. Okay. All right, well, that's as far as I can go until I get the pan. But even with that, you know, I'm just gonna put the pan on. I'm gonna torque those bolts down to about 100 inch-pounds. Just make sure everything is nice and tight so there's no leaks. And that's it. So again, 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo 3.6 845 RE. Pretty much very similar to the 8 HP 45, 8 HP 70 family. We did a case swap due to a cracked case, and we'll be good to go. Once I get the pan, I'll call him up. He'll be happy to get this back, put it back in the car, and get the car back to his daughter. All right, guys, I thank you for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you next one.